Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Evaṁ me sutaṁ ekaṁ samayaṁ bhagavā Varanasiyam viharati isipatane migadaye tatra ko bhagava panchavagye bhikkhu amantesi. Friends and children in the Dhamma, with the permission of Venerable Chief Nayaka Hamdaro and the other members of the Sangha, let's continue the series of Dhamma talks based on the Buddha's first ever discourse, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the wheel turning of the Dhamma. We have introduced to you the background and the context of this sutta, to whom and in where this Dhamma was teaching at that time. Sitting in the Dhamma seat in Benares, in Migadaya, in Isipatana, Lord Buddha addressed the 5 ascetics. Panchavagye bhikkhu amantesi. He addressed the group of 5 ascetics, and immediately the Dhamma talks began. As soon as he addressed the 5 ascetics, thousands and thousands, in fact millions and millions of divine beings, Brahmas, came down from their realms and swarmed, gathered in this area to pay attention to Lord Buddha. Then the Buddha, he immediately entered into the talk, into the Dhamma, by addressing the critical, important aspects which ought to be, should be removed, discarded from the monastic life. And these aspects, he introduced them as anta. Usually, anta is to be translated as parts or portions or sections. Dve me bhikkhave anta. Monks, there are 2 parts, 2 sections. But in relevant to the sutta, Usually the anta is translated as extremes, because in this sutta Buddha is introducing the path for the enlightenment, and he introduces the path as the middle path, or the Eightfold Noble Path. Since his path is the middle one, here dveme bhikkhave anta, monks, there are two parts or portions, or usual translation is, monks, there are two extremes. Two extremes. Pabbajitena nasevi tabba. And he says, Pabbajitena, by the one who went forth from the household life to the homelessness. Homeless life. Voluntarily entered into the homeless life by going forth from the household life. Now, we have to understand, if we are to explain today the Pabbajittas as the ones who are homeless, here we have to understand, in this environment, homelessness is a different phenomenon. People understand homelessness in a different way. But in the Buddhist discipline, homelessness is that going forth from the life which are relevant to the householders, maintaining a family, enjoying the sensual pleasures, going after desires. These are the things that they discarded when they become monastics, when they went forth from the household life to the monastic life. Pabbajita, one who went forth. Buddha says, Pabbajitena nasevitabba, should not be indulged upon. So he is introducing the negative side that one must be discarded for the positive fruitions, positive results in the monastic life, in the life of someone who has renounced from the worldly affairs. Dveme bhikkhave anta pabbajitena nasevi tabba. Monks, there are two portions, two areas, that one who has renounced the worldly affairs should not be engaged upon, should not be indulged. And he says, what are these two extremes? Yochayang kamesu kama sukhallikanu yogo. The first one, the first part is kamesu, on sensual pleasures. Kama sukha allikanu yoga. Sukhallikanu yoga. That means being indulgent on pleasing the senses. This is one extreme, one part, one side that the ones who have left the household life should discard, should not be indulged. Kamesu, on sensual pleasures, being indulged upon, pleasing the sensual desires. Now, kamesu is a word which is familiar to us because in the third precept of the group of 5 precepts is kamesu miccāchārā, wrong approach, wrong usage on the sensual pleasures. Miccāchāra, wrong behavior, wrong usage on the sensual pleasures. This indicates that for a householder at home has to be careful not to go to wrong direction or unlawful directions to please the senses. Then Buddha says it is his downfall. It is a disastrous enjoyment that will destroy his present life, the development, progress of his present life. So the wrongful way of pleasing the senses, kamesu miccāchāra, should be avoided by a householder, for it can be disastrous for his present life as well as for the next life. It is a kind of a evil deed. Here, kama sukhallikanu yogo means that his entire attention, his entire focus is on the pleasing the senses. Spirituality is something doesn't matter for him. Spirituality is not something he wants to take care. All what he takes care is about the body and its desires. So this is an extreme. The body is everything for him. Pleasing the senses is everything for him. He doesn't care about the spirituality. His life is not complete. No matter what he has, he is empty within, a beggar, a pauper within. All what he has is body. He is poor in his spirit. This is completely in an extreme which is leading for misery. Spiritually, he can be depressed, stressed, worried. Spiritually, he is absolutely empty. We can find in the today's world where the pursuit is always material. Money is the pursuit. We can find that the world is unsatisfied, depressed. World is sick. The people are sick. That sickness is spreading everywhere because of this pursuit of material goals. Materials are needed. But when you are only in that area, forgetting the spirituality, forgetting the spiritual values, then you are in Kama Sukhallikanu Yoga. You are one-sided and you are lopsided. And you are not right. It is not correct. Something wrong within you. Kama Sukhallikanu Yoga. And Buddha says, this Kama Sukhallikanu Yoga is hino, kind of vulgar, kind of lower. Gammo, kind of something that belong to the villages or the townsfolk. It doesn't exist in the ones who are in the pursuit of truth. It belongs to the people who are engaging in worldly affairs, not in the ones who pursue the Dhamma. Gammo, hino gammo, potujjaniko. It belongs to the ones who are repeating the process of birth and death. It belongs to the one who is engulfed in the samsara, who is bound to be coming back again and again to the life, to suffer again and again, to be in misery again and again. Potujjana. Putujjana is someone who repeatedly coming back to the life. Potujjaniko. Anaryo. It is not noble. Anatta sanghito. It is bound to grant, yield unbeneficial results. Anatta sanghito. No beneficial results are there. Unbeneficial results. Because being succumbed to the old age, sickness, death, they seek, they search, that are also succumbed to the old age, sickness, death. Inanimate or animate, living or materials, whatever we pursue, they are bound to create misery for us one day. More we gather the stuff that create misery for us, our life is bound to be more and more miserable. Lesser the things we have with us which generate misery for us, more will be our happiness. So being succumbed, prone to the suffering, we gather things that are also prone to suffering. That is why anatta sanghito. How many adjectives that the Buddha has given for the Kama Sukhallikanu Yoga? Hino, low, vulgar. Gammo, it is for the uneducated. It is for the worldling who doesn't know the Dhamma. Potujjaniko, it is for the one who is repeating the samsara, not the one who try to stop this repetition of the samsara, birth and death. Anaryo, ignoble. Anatta sanghito, producing disastrous results. Hino, gammo, potujjaniko. anariyo, anatta sanghito. 5 adjectives, all negative adjectives Buddha uses to introduce what kind of harmful practice to be engulfed, to be indulged in the sensual pleasures, in the sense to an extreme that one has completely given up his attention on the spirituality. He has forgotten the being what is living within him. All his attention is for the body and its pleasures. That's all. Body and its pleasures is his concern, not the mind and its cultivation. This is one extreme, one part that those who have left the household life, who have gone forth from the world, should discard, pleasing the 5 senses to an extreme. The second part that they have to discard is yo chayang atta kilamatanu yogo dukkho anariyo anatta sanghito. They have to discard the other extreme, the other part, atta kilamatanu yogo. That is the indulgence in the self-tormentation, generating misery for the body. At that time, those who had the idea to get rid of misery, they thought what the misery, the object that the misery is generated is the body. The body is the source behind the misery. It means the body must be tormented, tortured, disturbed. The body must suffer. When the body is tormented, tortured continuously, the source of misery is getting weakened, and one day he is liberated from all the misery. This is a self-torturing. It is a violence towards oneself. This is the other extreme of the people who put effort to please the senses, who put effort to gain more and more sense pleasures. They please the senses. The other extreme, torture the senses. So these people who wants to torture the body to get rid of the source of misery, they had found all sorts of techniques, methods to create suffering for them. They were lying on thorny beds. They were not wearing any clothes. They were not feeding their bodies sufficiently. They were like skeletons because of the lack of food. They were not shaving their heads but uprooting this hair from the body, from the head. Finding all sorts of methods to torture the body. They were being violent towards themselves. Of course, when one becomes violent towards others, people will punish that person for being violent towards others, but when they become violent towards themselves, they were respected, they were venerated. They were thought to be arahants because they are violent towards themselves. But Buddha found that being violent towards oneself has nothing to do with the enlightenment. Being violent towards yourself can be a source for respect, veneration, but not a source for enlightenment. For the enlightenment, you have to let go of being practicing these torturous methods on the body. Because body is your house, your lodging. It is where you live. You have to be keeping this body in a moderately comfortable posture, comfortable level. You have to feed it, bathe it. You have to quench its thirst. You have to put medicine in it to overcome the ailments. You have to take care of your body. Because if the body is sick, uncomfortable, painful, there is no way that you can develop, you can balance your spirituality within. So the Buddha's vision is that you have to keep the body in a certain comfortable posture, comfortable level, for the sake of bringing your spirituality to a higher and greater level. So therefore Buddha rejected these torturous practices towards the physicality. Because it is, in his vision, he says, dukkho anariyo anatta sanghito. While five adjectives were used by Buddha to introduce the ugly side of being indulgent upon the sense pleasures, Buddha uses here three adjectives. Dukkho, suffering. It is painful, it is suffering, torturing the body. Anaryo, it is ignoble. No arahants arise with this practice. So there is no nobility. Nobility is not found, it is ignoble. Anaryo. Anatta sanghito, it doesn't produce beneficial results. Only the non-beneficial, unbeneficial, harmful results are there. He uses just three words. He is not so harsh. He is not so critical on this practice of Atta Kilamatana Yoga. Because these people who torture their body, at least putting some effort to develop the spirituality. Only thing they forgot, body is not a hindrance, not an obstacle, not a fetter for the spirituality. Body is a utility. Body is something to be used for the development of spirituality. So they had forgotten, they had misunderstood, and they had this idea that the body is a hindrance for the liberation. Body is a help for the liberation. So since Buddha wanted to bring these people from the extreme of torturing the body to the moderate level, to the middle point, he asked his monastics to discard, to get rid of this kind of torturous practices. Atta Kilamatana Yoga. Don't torture your body. That is the message. That is the message. That is the advice. Don't torture your body. Don't indulge in sense pleasures. Take food to feed your body, not to please the tongue. Wear clothes just to cover the body, to keep the body safe, not as a fashion, not as something to beautify the body. Keep your body washed, clean, but not to beautify it. So take care of the body, but avoid any kind of pleasing, any kind of pleasures. So bringing his commune to a middle point is what Buddha wanted. Because at this middle point, the mind and the body is balanced. But you can see Buddha has some compassion towards the people who are in the Atta Kilamatana Yoga. He was not vehemently critical, extremely criticizing, being harsh towards the practitioners of Atta Kilamatana Yoga. He just said it is a cause of suffering. It is just suffering without results. There are two kinds of suffering. Suffering today, but a beneficial result tomorrow. That is a suffering with a result. Suffering today without any result tomorrow. This Atta Kilamatana Yoga, practicing all sorts of torturous methods that the Buddha himself practiced prior to his enlightenment. To the ultimate level, he tortured his body, and what he found was just a torturing, nothing else, no development. For him, it is just a suffering, dukkho, anaryo. No one get enlightened by suffering the body, by torturing the body. So ignoble. It doesn't bring any kind of nobility, any kind of higher stages of enlightenment. And anatta sanghito, it just produces painful, harmful results, no beneficial results. Anatta sanghito. But when he was talking about Kama Sukhallikana Yoga, he so vehemently, strongly, in a kind of harsh manner, he was against that Kama Sukhallikana Yoga. He says, Hino, Gammo, Potu Janiko, Anaryo, Anatta Sanghito. These words indicate that he completely rejected it. Because if a monk lose the balance from taking care of the food, taking care of the body with the food, beverages, drinks, with clothes, with medicine, with shelter. He loses this point where he has to be moderate in taking care of the body and slip into the side of pleasing the body, satisfying the body. Then that satisfying the senses, satisfying the body itself can generate, can create a complete distraction for him. He can be absolutely distracted from the spiritual life to the worldly affairs, to the sensual life, pleasing the senses. So that's why Buddha was vehemently rejecting any kind of indulgent in the sense pleasures. At the same time, he says, don't torture your body. Take care of the body. So the body and the mind is balanced. Body and the mind is in an equilibrium. So in this sutta, the Buddha begins by rejecting with a clear-cut explanation. No one is allowed to generate another ideas, the other ideas, and to misinterpret, to interpret it in a different manner. There is no any opportunity for that. Very clearly, he rejected these two extremes. When he is rejecting these two extremes, then he brings up the positive or the beneficial practice that can be yielding, that can be giving immediate results and liberate those followers, those practitioners. He says, Ete te bhikkhave ubho ante anupagam majjima patipada tathagatena abhisambuddha. Ubho ante anupagam. Ete ubho ante anupagam. Without entering, without going into any of these parts, ante, any of these extremes, without going into any of these extremes, ubho ante, ubho means dual, two, ante, extremes, anupagam, without entering, without going into. Majjima patipada, by the middle path, with the middle path, tathagatena abhisambuddha. The Tathagata is enlightened, or Tathagata has realized. Tathagata is a term that the Buddha used to introduce himself. He never used or rarely used the word like I, my, me. Instead of using these I, me, my or mine, he used the term Tathagata, which is a third person. Tathagata translated, it means thus gone, or thus has come. Yeah, the one who is just going. It is a walk on the sky. No footprint is left behind. No trail is left behind. It is a walk that which has left nothing behind. It is just a walk. It is just a going. That's all. Tathagata, thus gone. Tathagata, thus has come. This is the term that Lord Buddha used to introduce himself in the suttas. Tathagata. Tathagatena abhisambuddha. By Tathagata, Abhisambuddha realized this path that the Tathagata has realized, Majjhima Patipada, is called the middle Patipada, the principle. Patipada usually translate as the path. But if you get the literal meaning, it means the principles. Principles that ought to borrow and practice and develop upon are the Patipada. And this middle path, or the principles in the middle, are Chakkukarani, Jnanakarani, Upasamaya, Abhinyaya, Sambodhaya, Nibbanaya Samvattati. This middle path, Chakkukarani, open your eyes. Open your eyes of wisdom. It means this middle path opens your vision to the truth. Truth is obvious to you after opening your eyes to it. You have your eyes, but since you are in an extreme, either being indulged upon sensual pleasures, or torturing your body, when you are in these extremes, you are unable to see the reality as it is. But when you are in the middle, you are prone to be observing the reality, the truth as it is. So this middle path opens your eyes to the reality. Chakkukarani. It creates vision. It generates your ability to see the truth as it is. This vision indicates nothing but the wisdom. It generates wisdom. Jnanakarani, another term for wisdom. It generates wisdom. Both Chakkukarani, Jnanakarani, generating, creating wisdom. Upasamaya, it subsides. It subsides defilements, kleshas. Kleshas get subside, then you are tranquil. Upasamaya usually meaning tranquility. How does our mind get tranquil? when our desires, anger, hatred, jealousy, competitiveness, these defilements always generate certain turbulence within us, a whirlpool within us, anxiety, stress within us. But when the defilements are subsided, our mind is tranquil. Upasamaya, generate tranquility. How does it generate tranquility? It generates by subsiding these defilements. Middle path subsides the defilements. Upasamaya. Abhinyaya. For the knowledge on the Four Noble Truths. Abhinyaya. Sambodhaya. For the realization of the Four Noble Truths. Nibbanaya. For the realization of Nibbana. So Buddha says, the path I realized. Majjhima patipada tathagatena abhisambuddha. This middle path that the Tathagata has realized is Chakkukarani. Opens the wisdom eye. Jnana Karani opens the wisdom. Upasamaya. It generates the tranquility by subsiding the defilements. Abhinyaya. It gives you the knowledge on the Four Noble Truths. Sambodhaya. It gives you the realization of the Four Noble Truths. Nibbanaya. It is for the Nibbana. Samvattati. It generates all these benefits. So the Buddha vehemently rejected those factors, those sides which can be obstacles for the realization, and he introduced them as extremes, and then he introduced his path as the middle to these two extremes. Why they are extremes? Because they forget the other side. One is all about the body, satisfying the body. The other is all about the mind and torturing the body. So Buddha says you have to take care of the body and the mind, the physicality and the spirituality in an equilibrium. Then there is a development. There is a development. So middle path is nothing but taking care of the body and taking care of the mind. Not being indulged upon the sense pleasures and forgetting the mind. Not torturing the body, only thinking about the mind. You take care of the body and mind in an equilibrium so that your wisdom eye will open up. Your wisdom will grow. Your turbulence generated by desires, anger, hatred will be subsided. Upasamaya. And you will be realized the Four Noble Truths. You will be acknowledged on the Four Noble Truths. And finally, you will be enlightened. Upasamaya, abhinyaya, sambodhaya, nibbanaya, samvattati. That's enough for today. Let's share all the merits by listening, by sharing, that we generated in our hearts together with Devas and the departed ones. Akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu lokasasanang chirang rakkantu desanang chirang rakkantu mam paranti idang me ñātinang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo idang me ñātinang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo idang me ñātinang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. A blessing for you. Dukkha roga bhaya vera soka sabbe upaddava anekantarayapi vinassantu ca tejasa jaya siddhi dhanang labhang sotti bhagyan sukham balang siriyayu ca vanno ca bhogang buddhi ca yasava satavassa cayu ca jiva siddhi bhavantu te ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminate samijjato. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Good night, everybody.